I start. It's 2:30. I'm happy to welcome you. So we have 200 places, about 10 people around, so 5% filled out, but I will give 100% talk, so I promise. And just a question, are there English-speaking people here around? No, then for me it's no difference, and for you it's a difference, so we'll have it in English, or are there maybe French or other people around? So therefore it's better to stick in English. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Oskar Slotosch. I'm a CIO of Validas AG, and I have today the honor to talk on the Eclipse tool qualification requirements, and I will introduce a little bit our company and what is tool qualification, and of course focus on the requirements from that. So I'm from Validas AG, and we are a service provider company, so we help our clients to improve their software quality, and we are specialized on tool qualification and avoidance of tool qualification. And we have an unqualified tool to avoid tool qualification. So this is a good sentence, or? This is an unqualified tool to avoid tool qualification. Obviously, we succeeded in avoiding qualifying our own tool. Okay, it has been developed in the research project and is freely available. And today, I won't talk on this tool. This is a different talk, and you can do many interesting things to avoid tool qualification. But today, we are working in the Eclipse Foundation, and we are presenting a way of building qualifiable tools, and this is a constructive way. This is more or less a black box approach, how you analyze and validate tools, but today we have a constructive way, and those are the contents of my talk. So we will have first visit the requirements from the standard on tool qualification, so why it's required to have tool qualification. Then we will present a roadmap and the requirements to this roadmap, so somehow our work in going with the Eclipse Foundation, what do we have to do, we have to consider. And we will explain you the requirements for the QPP project, which will be becoming an Eclipse project. And of course, we'll show you a short vision how your, what the requirements are when you build a qualifiable tool. Okay, who knows what is tool qualification about or is interested? So some of you know, but I think I gave an introduction now to tool qualification. Well, the qualification, this is from the ISO 26262, the automotive standard. The qualification of the software tool shall be documented, including the following. A, unique identification and version number. B, so you don't look so interested? Well, I'll can go skip this and make the next standard, which is the ECE2012. This is general standard on security, and this says on tool qualification, the results of a tool validation shall be documented, covering the following results: chronological record of the validation activities, the version of the tool product, and so on. So also not so interesting. I think I'm bothering you, so we can go to the next standard, which is the ISO DU 178, B or C, and in this case C, where it's written, qualification of a tool is needed when process of these documents are eliminated, reduced or automated by the use of a software tool without output being verified, and there's a long list of things. So the standards prescribe you everything, but I'll give you a more illustrative summary. So tool qualification is just the answer. Do you play with fire? Do you have safety critical things? So if you use tool, then you need to qualify things. And I think you guys play around with fire, as I observed yesterday. And well, I was not there, but I think you guys playing around with fire, and therefore you do safety relevant things. And obviously, you're using some kind of tools to work with the fire here. So there is a tool, and there are tools, and well, we need to identify and avoid the risks. Well, otherwise, it could look like this. This does not seem so so good. So, well, this was the last photo in the slide, so I'm not sure what happened yesterday because I could not join you, but, well, if you're doing tool qualification or you're doing safety relevant things, then you should qualify your tools. And, well, we can try to avoid tool qualification, so I'm an expert in avoiding tool qualification, and then the suggestion would be not to use this alcohol, but to use water instead of it. Then you do not need to qualify the tools, then it's not so dangerous. So if you had used water, you don't need tool qualification. But if you like to play around with the fire and you have tools, then you need tool qualification. Okay, this is somehow an overview why we need tool qualification, and there are many requirements on the standard, and well, I think you were not so happy when I was starting to reading in the standards, and you would like to have another thing. You don't like standards, or don't you? Who likes standards? Well, 2, 3, some of you, but, well, I'm getting used to the standard, but I have 3 of them I presented to you, and, well, they are huge standards, and they are technical to read and to interpret, and a lot of work. So, well, who would prefer to have models instead of this? So, model-based development. So I agree this is a better way, but how can we proceed? So the first good news is that there is one standard that can be applied instead of 3 standards. So you don't need to read all the 3 standards, you just read to one of it. This is the ECE2012 is the first standard just for tools. So if you develop tools for safety critical things that should be qualifiable, then you can apply this standard. And the good thing is it's independent from the domain. So this is avionic domain, this is automotive domain, this general safety domain. It's independent. You can use all those 3 domains, you can map to this standard. Well, that's great. So we just need a description a relationship between the standard and the model. So we have prepared a qualification model and the documentation how to use this model, and all this should be done. So you just need to work with the qualification model. And we care, we have here the description of the model. You might look in if you're interested in what is the notation of this, but you do not need to show that this way of working with the model conforms to this standard, and you don't also need to know to map all those 3 standards. So you don't need to read standards, just use this qualification model. I think this is good news, especially since we are already done with this work. So you can use the qualification model, and then you will get qualifiable tools. Well, it's not so good. You can use it, but it's not really necessary, not really well integrated into Eclipse. So it's a standalone model, and it needs integration. And I will show you the requirements for this integration, which are on our current roadmap. But I think all this long story with the standards, you don't need to read them. That's why I skipped them in the introduction, because we have this qualification model, and we have the argumentation why this is really complete. Well, we have, when we joined the Eclipse Foundation in the beginning of the year, we started to work on a roadmap. And the roadmap was, we have no concept, we just want to have tool qualification, and well, as a first step, we identified the goals with this generic standard, the ECE2012, which is very well applicable to all domains. And since Eclipse is applicable in all domains, this is exactly the right standard. The second thing is that we worked on a concept, which was this model-based tool approach, which I'll show some aspects of it later. And the third step is to demonstrate the concept that it's really working. So, well, just that I claim that I have a nice model and that is completely traceable against the ECE2012 does not say that this is really practical and nice to work with. So we need to demonstrate it. And in order to make it easier for you, it's better if you have everything integrated in Eclipse and not a standalone, of course, Eclipse-based editor, but it's, you will see why it's good to integrate it later on. And once you have all this integrated in Eclipse, you are able to develop qualifiable plugins. So you don't need to develop qualifiable plugins unless you don't need it. So, but since I saw your guys playing around with fire yesterday, you might need some tools developed in a safety-relevant standard. So therefore, it's nice to have, and of course, not all plugins of Eclipse need to be requalified. Maybe only the safety-relevant ones, and this is also a process which we will enable. It's not our task to qualify all what you are developing, all Eclipse, but it will be our task to enable you to do so as well, and to make it as painless as possible, because there is some overhead to create documents and so on and so on. So there is some overhead, and we will try to minimize this, and we will demonstrate that this is really well working. Well, this is the roadmap from Automotive Industrial Working Group, which also is for avionic automotive, for avionic domain and other domains applicable. So we are synchronizing with those people, and we agreed that this is the right way to work on this. And well, currently we could qualify this, and what is interesting, the DO330 has 450 requirements, and there are so many things in, and you do not want to satisfy them all, to have long checklists and see whether we do this all, and therefore we will have this model that can have some automated checks and will guide you through the missing things. So this is something, if you have requirements and you have no test cases for it, then the model will say, well, there's a requirement without test case. So this is something how it's going to be working. But I'll show you a little bit more. Yes, as I said, we have all covered this thing by a traceability issue and validated our model against the standard. But what is our model? So currently you see the Eclipse has an architecture, so you can combine plugins, you can export packages, you can import packages, you can bundle tests, so of course you can develop the code, you can jump to definitions, all those things, nice things, are model-based. Why it's model-based? Because you have a model of the code, and the application of a method knows its definition. And this is the model behind it. And this is why it's so nice to work with Eclipse. This is the model behind Eclipse. And you have an integration model. You just select the platform and the plugins you need, and then it's generating for you a standalone version of the tool. So all this is model-based development, and all this makes Eclipse so nice. Well, the problem with the current model is that it does not satisfy everything which is required from the DO330. So the DO330 says you should document your requirements. So where are the requirements here? They are not there. And if I ask people in Eclipse projects, where are your requirements? They said, well, in our bug tracking system, we have some requirements. Well, this is not, it's better than not having requirements, but it's not the way the standard requires this. So you should have a well-defined place for your requirements. And you should have high-level requirements and architectural requirements and low-level requirements. So we will come to this a little bit later. But to summarize it, we need a bigger model. We need a model that also covers requirements and that also covers test cases. And we have this model. But the model is currently a standalone model and not integrated into Eclipse, which makes development so nice. So if we have these look and feel, you jump to it, you see the call trees, you see the dependencies, the data flow, everything you can see with Eclipse. But you can see which requirements you have not tested or so, something like that. But this is our work to integrate this. So the current meta model is this one, and this one would be the nice one, which we can develop qualifiable plugins. And if you don't care about requirements in your project, because it's an ordinary Eclipse project, you just don't fill it out. But it is currently not possible to enter requirements or other things. And let me say some words to the documentation. So if you want to document that you have done a very good tool development, you need lots of documents. So I think at least 15 or 20 documents need to be generated. So the requirement specification, the tool criticality analysis, the test specification, the test design, the architecture, everything is at least a separate chapter of a document. And people recommending one document for each purpose. So you have 15 or 20 documents. And I guess that no one in the Eclipse community would like to write so many documents. So the good information is, once you enter the requirements in the model, you can generate out a requirements specification from this model. And once you have assigned the model, the requirements to test cases, you can generate a test plan out of the model. So you do this only once in the model, and you generate all the documents out of it. So this is a big benefit, but not the only one, because the model can also give you advice. You have an untested requirement, or you have an untested piece of code, and something like that. So this will be many benefits from this extended model. Well, how could this look like? This is an old slide. I just frequently show this. You know all those tabs for having different, let's say, architectural informations of your plugins. Well, and we need something like requirements or qualifiable features and test cases and links and everything, maybe known bugs or other things. So you need further tabs in your meta model. And this could look like this, that you have those additional informations integrated. Well, these were the requirements to our roadmap. And, well, as I said, it will be the task of the QPP project to extend the current Eclipse meta model to this meta model. We need also to refine this a little bit and identify it, how to specify the requirements, how to connect with the bug tracking system, how to connect with the testing system, and make proposals to the subversioning, JIT integration. All those things need to be integrated. Well, the best thing to find out the requirements, what is helpful, is to eat your own dog food. So just demonstrate the concept, try it manually without the integration, and then we will see what is required for the integration. So that's very easy. And of course, if something is not very elegant modeled, we can also improve the model during or based on this validation. Well, we decided as a demonstrator to implement a model checker that checks this DO model. So, for example, on the model you can determine the maturity of your project. If it is classifiable, or if it's an alpha release or a beta release or feature complete or a release candidate, those life cycles you will have, and they can be automatically determined from this model. And of course, this is a critical functionality to determine this stage, and therefore we selected it to develop it according to this model. Well, and we have several kinds of requirements, and we'll monitor our effort to see what will be necessary. And well, we are working on this currently. And to be more concrete, we have here 6 plugins, and every plugin needs such a model. And we have set up a Git server and a Garrett, which is a review tool. We are using Bugzilla to track bugs and to handle this. And of course, those informations from those tools need to be integrated and fed into our model. And to determine, for example, if I want to release a product, there shouldn't be any critical open bug. Well, therefore, if I say, well, this tool is finished, then this mechanism has to look to the bug tracking system and see whether there are critical bugs open. And this is very difficult and complex to handle. Therefore, we said, well, we make a model of our bugs with the criticality and other informations, and we import from the bug tracking system all those bugs in the model. And of course, this import mechanism is a requirement to our QPP project. Will be one subtask to build this connection to Bugzilla or Track or other systems to import the open bugs into the qualification model. And of course, if there are no critical bugs open, you have a list of known bugs, and you can see how to handle it. And it's important for qualification to know the known bugs of a tool. Well, this is just a demonstrator structure. We have, this is, you know, from the EMF, we have a model, edit editor, and the product as separate plugins, and we have the checker, which does the main checking thing, and we have an UI with some menu functions or something like that. So this is a typical small Eclipse project. Well, since we are talking on requirements today, I would just show you some parts of the model which are here on the right-hand side. This is the requirements level. You have the so-called tool operational requirements. Those are the requirements that show how your tool is operating in your environment. And you can derive the tool requirements, which are, say, the functions of the tool. And you have these low-level requirements, which are somehow the inline documentation. And this is also, inline documentation is also something which is currently, well, halfly modeled in Eclipse. You can see there are documents and there are suppressed tags and other tags in the requirements. So those are the low-level requirements, but they are not currently traceable to tool requirements because there are no tool requirements. Well, okay, and here I have marked some elements in red, because if you develop in a sound way, you should review your requirements. Am I really doing the right thing? And, well, you have the tool operational requirements and the tool requirements, and there is a verification necessary. So verification data is modeled like this. You have passed, true or false, and you have a validator name who has done it in a date. You see it has been accepted somehow. So when you change a requirement, you have to verify it. And, well, this is usually done with, for example, reviewing tools or other mechanisms to verify those requirements. Well, this is just a small thing how we are working. We have some, just to illustrate how this verification of requirements can look like. So we do something, we push it, and then we have here some server that will accept this or should accept this, and then we have here a change. So this is the old model, this is a new model. You see that's important for us to have this EMF, the model diff tool, because this is currently not a really nice representation of the models. But once we see the differences, we can decide to review it, and then we enter our comment here and say, well, we press review, and then the review field comes up, and then we can rank it plus, is it good for me, or negative is not good for me. And if we have 2 or a certain level of pluses, then the changes are accepted. So this is, well, a nice and established way to manage your requirements and to review the changes. And for a very critical project, this is established. So I know many people in automotive domain working like this. So for them, that's a usual process. Well, once we have entered these information into the Gerrit system, they are stored in the system and say, well, this is nice here, and the review has been accepted. But it's not in our model, and therefore we need the connection between the Gerrit system and our model. Well, and this is like with the Baxilla system, where we also need the connection from this system to our model. Well, and this is the way how we derive some subtask of our QPP thing. It's not really necessary for you to understand this. It's just the way how we derive the requirements. So we eat our own dog food, and we see, well, this is much work to do it all manually. It would be nice if we can just have an import that imports from the Gerrit system to our model. Well, so I'm coming to the end with the last 5 minutes, leaving some room for questions. So how would this for you looks like? So you would probably just have to enter the tool operational requirements. For example, my checker should determine the qualification state of my plugin projects, and then you can derive these tool requirements and low-level requirements. And you just create here a project, and then with the usual EMF technique, you say just new tool operational requirements or test cases or whatever. So this is a very simple way of editing requirements. Well, maybe not the best one. So if somebody is knowing DOORS tool or the RMF tool framework in Eclipse, these are more advanced requirements tools. But the standards do not say you need to have a requirements management tool. They say only you should have a review on your requirements once it changes. So I would leave is optional if you enter the requirements descriptions as a textual string, or if you import it from DOORS or other tools. So this is not important. Important is that at the end they are in the model and they can be checked from the model checker. Okay, then I'll come to the summary for you. I think this was an important image beside the one you're playing with the fire, that you need tool qualification. And we have a roadmap, and it's applicable to automotive, avionics, and other domains. And, well, we, with Validas and Eclipse Foundation, are working on the topic in order to provide you a nice qualification model. And, well, currently, we are gathering those requirements and, let's say, also gathering the resources to make this QPP project become true. So it's not so easy to do this. Maybe it's a research-founded project, or we are not a university that just can simply do this. We need some partners to support us and other things. And, well, once we have set up this project, we can also publish and review those documents. Currently, the documents are internal documents that we need to validate before we give them out. Well, and at the end, we will be able to qualify these Eclipse projects. So I hope you know that QPP stands for Qualifiable Plugin Projects. Well, if you are not too frightened from tool qualification, I can invite you to come to the Tool Qualification Symposium we are organizing in next April in Munich. So we'll have the Kempinski Hotel in Munich, and we'll have the Hofbräuhaus in the evening. And, well, you can already register and get 20% fee until the mid of December for early registration. And we will have really good talks. We will have Frédéric Poton, which is the creator or managing director of the DO330 standard, and we will have tool providers like IBM presenting their qualification kit for DOORS and for Rhapsody, and we will have Simon First giving a talk on the ISO 26262, and we'll have requirements from the nuclear domain, tool qualifications, and avionic domain, of course. So this will be a very interesting thing, and we'll also have some tutorials. So there's a 2-day symposium, and this is the first one of this thing. Well, at the end, I'd like to thank you for your attendance and also acknowledge the people working in the industrial working group with me, especially BMW Car IT and Mario Drössi from Virtual Vehicle in Austria. So thank you then. I'm finished quite in time. I have some time left for questions. So do you have any questions on tool qualification or requirements or general things? Yes?
It looks to me that you already have two parts in this project. One which is generic, which is the qualification model, and we check that all the steps are correctly done and some it. And then a bunch of connectors to a dedicated particular development infrastructure, which in this case is Eclipse, if you want to qualify Eclipse plugins. It seems to me that we could reuse generic part and add for completely different development.
Yes.
How much is reusable and how much is specific to Eclipse plugins?
Well, I've been asked to repeat the question. So the question was, how much of this qualification model can be reused for other EDAs or programming languages? And I'll say 80 or 90%. So we have many things which are independent. For example, the requirements, the low-level requirements and the structure. You have different kind of requirements. You have the functional requirements, input-output requirements, the error message requirements. So the standard identifies those things, and therefore we have them in the model. And the model covers completely the standard. So you can use the model instead of the standard. This is the good news. And for some specific elements of Eclipse, like an eCore file or an Eclipse class diagram, we have created architectural elements that specify the architecture. Well, if you're using other programming languages, C or what is it called in French functional languages? OCaml, yes. If you're using OCaml, then you will probably have different ways in describing the architecture. Either you use class diagrams or you have nothing else, but you need somehow an architectural description there. And for Eclipse, it will be easy to take the architecture because they have a very nice architecture. Also from the plugins, exported and imported packages are also architectural elements. And for OCaml, I don't know, maybe the module system could be reused to describe the architecture. This would be something helpful. I could imagine to have one description for one OCaml module. The question was whether we plan to integrate further requirements tools like DOORS or other tools, or especially you could have also other connectors. Not even we're currently working with Bugzilla, and we are creating a connector to Bugzilla, but not for the track system, for example, or comparable things. And well, the answer is twofold. One is that we create the basic model, and other things can be mapped to this down. So if you want to use DOORS, you can use DOORS, but if you would prescribe to use DOORS, that is not that everyone can accept or will accept. So therefore, these things are add-ons. And I agree with you that management in DOORS is better than in EMF-style editors, but we can provide the delta, we can measure the delta between DOORS and EMF-style editors once we have this. We do it manually with EMF-style editors, and then we use DOORS, and then we see the difference. And I think many people will then like more to use DOORS than EMF-style editors. The second part of the question was whether we use connectors only to Bugzilla or to others. Well, currently we are very open, and I think this is a chance for people working with us. For example, if we are working with BMW, car IT, and they said we are using Bugzilla, well, then we'll build the connection to Bugzilla because they use it. But if we have more partners in the project that say, well, we are using Track, maybe Track is the smarter system, and we use Track or similar other connectors. So this will be a good chance for you to steer our project in the direction. So just to cooperate with us. So I think this is the answer to the second question. Okay, so then I have just one announcement for this. I have also some flyers for the Tool Qualification Symposium. I put some of them here. And then I'll thank you again for your attendance, and we'll go to the closing session now. Thank you.